In the world today, it's harder than ever to be a parent. Most of us are just trying to make it to the next day. Between jobs that take too much time away from our kids, to world events, to the dangers of social media, it's a never-ending battle to be a parent. Put that next to the guilt of too much TV, are they eating enough healthy foods? You have a stress-induced, chaotic life with little balance. But here's the thing. We're all good parents, because if you're stressing about your kids watching too much TV or new ways to get them to eat veggies because the old tricks won't work, then you care. And when it comes down to it, that's what counts. Now, we're not parenting experts. We don't always have useful advice. But what we do have is solidarity in that we're all going through the same things, be it at different times, but the same things nevertheless. And sometimes it's good to be reminded that other parents out there who are, despite how it appears, going through the same things you are. All right, so we're here on part 2 of the top 5 highs and lows of 2020. If you haven't checked out the part 1 of this, what are you doing listening to podcasts out of order? That doesn't make any sense. So if you haven't listened to the first part, go back, check out that. That's episode 2. This is episode 3, which is just part 2 of that. So we've made it about halfway through our lists here. I can't tell you which one we ended off on, so why don't we start on let's start on a bad one, so we end on a good one. I think that's it's always good to end on a good note, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
All right, so why don't I go?
You go. Yes.
All right, so one of the bads of 2020 was that all of this really happened. At least it felt like it did, and maybe it's because the most recent part of 2020/COVID was that it was kind of cold towards the end of it. So everything was kind of fine during the summer, and I think like most people felt that way. You know, when the weather's nice and you can go outside, you can get some fresh air, you might go to a park or, you know, do some independent activity, whatever it might be, running outside or just going on a leisurely walk. But when the cold set in, when fall and winter just obliterated any kind of outdoor activity, which I shouldn't say that, cross-country skiing, snowboarding, sledding, which is, as far as I know, anything you can do in the snow. Can you tell we're not snow people?
Dog sledding?
I don't think we get enough snow for dog sledding. You'd also need enough dogs to pull you and everything.
Would be fun, though.
Yeah, but not to take care of the dogs.
No, but to go to I've been to a place before in Canada where they take you dog sledding and you get to drive the dog sled.
I don't think Americans are allowed in Canada due to COVID. I'm not poking holes in it, I'm just saying.
Let me just sit back and have some wine while you continue.
So yeah, just the cold kind of stunk. I mean, we did take Owen out for sledding and things like that, and you know, our backyard's got a little bit of a hill, so we did a little bit of sledding, and we went out and made snowman, and I think Owen actually calls snow snowman every time he says it, so that's always cute. But yeah, the cold just kind of takes it out of you, and I that just to me was the final straw, I guess. Yeah, I did COVID pretty well, social distancing, not being able to go anywhere. That didn't really bother me that much because I could get outside. I could wash a car, or I could go clean something, or I could go organize something. But when it's cold out and you can't do that, then you literally are confined in your house. And I know I get quarantine and all that kind of stuff. You're confined in the house, yes, but you still technically could go outside. You still technically could go into your yard. With winter and fall, it just crushed me.
Yeah, that's one of mine too, is not just with winter, but I think that exacerbated it. But one of mine is the lack of options for activities. So there were definitely more activities to do in the summer. But some of my favorite things to do in the summer are go to this spot on the canal near us and walk on the canal path and go to the ice cream shop that's there, go to a couple restaurants that are out on the water. And we just didn't feel comfortable doing that this summer. I think there was outdoor dining in the summer. The ice cream shop was open, and they had, my sister and her family went quite a bit to the ice cream shop, and they had like a new window that you went up to instead of going in the shop. So for them, it felt really safe. But again, because I was pregnant, I just felt like there weren't a ton of options that you and I personally felt really comfortable participating in. Which again, everyone has different, levels of comfortability. But for us, it just felt like there was a lot of lack of options for activities. And I 100% agree with you that once the colder weather set in, it was like the dread of, okay, where we live, winter is like 5 months. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Because we've latched on to just being outside and having that kind of being our kind of saving grace almost of like, yes, we don't get to see as many people. We don't get to go out as much. We don't get to go out to dinner or see friends really, but we can be outside. We can be in the sun. We can be in the fresh air. And then you're stuck inside for these months. And that ended 2020 on a really hard note.
Yeah, I mean, getting outside was kind of our escape. You know, it gave us the opportunity or an outlet to just kind of a little more freedom.
Yeah.
And to take that away, just leave it in the comments or email us and tell us your story. But it was crushing to not be able to have that freedom anymore. When you feel like all your other freedoms are being taken away, being able to go to the mall and shop, being able to go to the grocery store and look at some food and not have to worry about, did somebody with COVID touch this apple and then put it back? Or did somebody, melon? Did somebody look at this cantaloupe who had COVID and sniff it, because apparently that's how you tell if it's ripe or not, and put it back because it wasn't? You know, it's stuff you start to think about. Or maybe I just think about that. I don't know. Again, leave a comment or email us at spillproofpodcast@gmail.com and let us know. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah.
So are we on to a
Yeah, let's do a good one, because
right.
that one made me sad because we're still in the middle of winter.
We are still in the middle
Although
of it.
today was a really nice day and it gave me hope that spring is around the corner.
Yes,
But
we got up to
yes.
69 degrees in upstate New York.
We did.
And that
was
is amazing. It was t-shirt and maybe shorts at the heat of the day. You could have worn shorts. I didn't, but it definitely was t-shirt weather, running around outside, and it was fantastic. It was even sunny.
It was really nice out today. So it gave me hope that warmer days are ahead and outdoor days are ahead. But let's move on to another highlight from 2020. So I started doing daily walks, which is something that I did have to put on hold when it got cold and icy out. So I'm really looking forward to bringing these back. But one of the things I loved so much about 2020 was I went on a daily walk with my son and my mom. As I mentioned in a previous podcast, she lives right around the corner in the same neighborhood. So, I would walk on the side of the street. She would walk at least 6 feet, if not more, apart, kind of in the middle of the street. And we would just kind of have a really early morning walk and start our day that way and get some exercise, get some fresh air. Owen loved it. He would point out the birds and he learned different words. He learned sky, he learned cloud. He would listen for planes and he had so much fun on these walks. And it was really nice for me to connect with my mom on these walks and just kind of have a sense of normalcy when everything was so different. I loved my morning walks, and I'm really excited to get back into them once the nice weather is here. But it was just a nice way to begin the day and get outside and get some exercise, and it just made me so happy.
Yeah, I mean, we live in a neighborhood, so, walking around, it's fairly safe. There's always those occasional people who cut through the neighborhood or neighbors who drive a little too fast. But generally, it's a nice, quiet neighborhood. And it was funny because, I joined you on some of those walks when I was furloughed. And it was funny because a lot of people walk, and I think that a lot of people probably could attest to this. They got outside. Walking's a great way to get outside, just a break from everything. And we'd run into the same people every day, and they'd always be neighbors. They'd either be walking or creepily be looking out the window and watching you, which that one was a little weird. I can't remember who that was specifically, but I want to say it was one of the neighbors.
It was.
That said they saw us walking, or saw you walking, and they all kept track of your pregnancy progress because they kept watching you get bigger.
Yeah, so many people that I didn't realize were watching me after I wasn't walking for probably a couple weeks and then we got back into walking again, people would pull their car over and say, oh, you had the baby. Is it a boy? Is it a girl? Is everyone healthy? And I was like, I don't know who you are, but you have been tracking my pregnancy as I'm walking around the neighborhood. So that was really funny to realize what was happening.
Yeah, a lot of people, they were like, oh yeah, we figured you must have had the baby because we didn't see you anymore.
And again, some people I was like, oh yeah, I saw you every day. We always cross paths. Mm-hmm. And some people I was like, I don't really know who you are. I've never seen you before.
Just this goes to show, you never know what your neighbors are doing or watching outside their windows. So just be mindful of that. Whatever you might be doing in your confines of your house, just be mindful you might be being watched by a neighbor.
Oh, gosh. Oh, goodness.
So are we on a good one or a bad one? That was a good one.
That was a good one.
Okay. So a bad one. For me, we might have already talked about this a little bit. A bad one for me was the fact that we had a lot of time off. So we had time off for furlough, of course, but we also had time off for the baby. And because of COVID, we couldn't do anything. We couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
We used to take Owen to the mall on the weekends and just let him run, tucker himself out.
Or people watch. He loved to people watch.
He was the judgiest baby in the entire world, and I realized that doesn't make any sense for a infant to be judgy.
But if you saw him, you would say, what a judgy baby.
He would size people up.
Yes.
When he met them at an extreme, 3 months, I want to say.
Like very early, he became, very judgy.
But he loved the people watch. Mm-hmm. Again, having all that free time, it's a dream to have 10 weeks off and then another 4 or 5 weeks, whatever it was for the furlough part. And, that was a lot of time. I mean, you have that much time off, you could take a road trip around the country. Mm-hmm. You could do Route 66. You could drive from one coast to another leisurely and see all the roadside attractions or tourist traps. Obviously, you wouldn't want to do that with a newborn, but I'm just saying there was a lot of time that something could have been done. I mean, we live in upstate New York, like we've mentioned a bunch already. Could have gone up to the Adirondacks, could have gone up to Lake Placid, not New York City. But it would have been nice to be able to do something with our time, even if ever so little. Even if it was, say, you know what, let's go down to the beach. Let's take a week off, go down to the beach, hang out, have the baby down there, and whatever. Just something would have been nice. But that just couldn't happen. And that's okay. I'm perfectly fine with it because when push comes to shove, family and family safety comes first among everything. So I don't regret anything. It just would have been nice to spend a little bit of time away. And this might be COVID Dave talking. Mm-hmm. And maybe if we weren't in COVID, I would have been like, are you nuts? We had a newborn baby and a 19-month-old. You can't travel with that. Yeah,
like where would we go that it would be enjoyable? Because you have to pack so much, and will they sleep wherever we're going, or will they be up all night? But yes, now that we've been inside a lot, and I think it goes back to like the lack of options for activities. It gets to you mentally.
Yeah, when Owen was he 6 months old at the time?
Like 5.5 months.
So when Owen was 5.5 months old, we had a family reunion on my side of the family. Mm-hmm. It was the last time that my grandma would ever actually end up being at a family event. So it was good. Unplanned, that being her last family get together. It just so happened to be that way. But all the extended family came. It was huge, and we all went to Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And if you haven't checked Gatlinburg, Tennessee out, or Pigeon Forge, which is just a little bit, I think, north of that, you should definitely take the time to do it. It's beautiful. It's a great town. It's extremely hot.
It was hot.
It was extremely hot. But there's some really great pizza and ice cream places there. For some reason, and this might not be a shock for a lot of people, but it was a shock to us because, again, we don't live in New York City. We live in upstate New York. But there's something about upstate New York where there's a million pizza places. And I don't mean like Papa John's or Domino's or Pizza Hut or whatever the chains are. I mean, there's like mom and pop places. Mark Pizzeria, Pontillo's. I can't think of any others at this exact moment. J&L is one. There's a couple of really good ones too. Big Deal Pizza, those places. There's a ton of them.
Chester Cab.
Chester
pizza.
Cab, that's a
Chester
really good one.
Cab.
If you're a Rochester local, Park Ave, Chester Cab, very good. That was the very first meal I had in my very first apartment was Chester Cab because my roommate and his dad said it was the best pizza. And
It is good.
It's extremely good pizza. I still stand by Big Deal Pizza is better. Another podcast, maybe. Again, we just keep making podcasts, ideas within a podcast. So, whatever. But
Podcast Inception.
Podcast Inception. But here's the thing. Traveling with a 6-month-old who is bottle fed. Again, that's a whole nother thing. Bottle, breast, formula. That's a whole nother thing. But it was extremely hard to travel with a 6-month-old. You get up. You leave at, say, 8 o'clock in the morning. You stop at 8:30 because they have to have a bottle. You got to pump. You got to do all that stuff. It's traveling with a 6-month-old adds 4 hours onto, I'd say, any long distance.
That's generous. Like, I feel like it's more. You add more time on.
It was a lot. Like, the progress was so slow. And we had rented a van, which thank goodness we did.
Filled it to the brim with all of our stuff.
We filled it up to the back window. We kept it safe.
The brim.
The brim of the bottom of the window.
Yes.
But we definitely packed too much for one child.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But it was really difficult to have that. Despite all that, I would still want to go do that.
Yeah, because I think we just want to do anything right now. Anything. Which I know, yes, we can. You know, there are the options, and you know, my sister and her family have traveled and have been very safe.
And COVID-free.
And COVID-free, yeah. They've been super safe and nobody's gotten sick and they've been able to travel to a couple places driving. It's just with having such little kids, it made it a little bit more... and a newborn. Not to mention a newborn thrown into all of this, you know.
Yeah, their kids are quite a bit older.
Yeah. So, you know, it adds that extra layer of like, well, you know, you really shouldn't bring like a newborn out that much in general and then add COVID to it, and it's like basically we're not going anywhere for a while. So that added layer of, yes, there are options, but should we really do them? You know, it definitely, we weighed the pros and cons so many times of like, let's just get away. We just need to get out of our house. But then when you think of the potential risks, it really made us nervous. And ultimately we didn't end up going anywhere because, you know, it just made us too nervous. And at the time, I think they were the right decisions for us. And we have a vacation planned for September to the beach, and I think that'll be way more enjoyable because...
We'll all be vaccinated.
We'll be vaccinated, hopefully, fingers crossed. Hopefully we'll have...
Well, fingers crossed you'll be vaccinated.
Yes, Dave. Dave is almost fully vaccinated. Yay.
Tomorrow I go for my second dose.
Yeah, hopefully. We've heard the second dose is worse. And you had a little bit of a reaction with the first, so...
We're pretty confident that at some point in...
January 2019
to January 2020, that I probably had COVID already at that point.
You were really sick.
I was really sick. They had not said that... I think COVID was a thing, but it wasn't like
a far distant thing.
Yeah, it was just like a thing that happened
across
overseas.
the world. Yeah.
Right. And, you know, as we got deeper into it, you know, they kept ooching up when it got to the United States. And it's within that time frame. And again, I work in sales. I see a lot of people. It very well could have happened. I got very sick. And one thing that we actually have always done, which was always common practice, is whenever I got sick or whenever somebody got sick in the house, we wore a medical mask, just your regular blue mask, and we quarantined in the house. We would quarantine to a bedroom and just shut the door and had an own designated bathroom, and we just were always safe. So it's possible that it was, and that's the reason why nobody else in the house got it. We'll find out. My brother's a nurse for the local hospital, and he said that if I did indeed have COVID back then, that this second dose is going to hit me like a Mack truck, and it's going to stink.
Yeah, I find it very interesting that, and when Dave says we put a mask on when we were sick, I never did that. Now, granted, in our marriage, I've gotten sick like really bad one time, probably like, 2.5 years ago, like very soon after we first got married, where I got like super, super sick with a very high fever.
Yeah.
But since we've had kids, Dave has just always, when he has gotten sick, put a mask on, quarantine in a different room. And I kind of find it amazing that, like, at the time I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. But yeah, we're keeping the kids safe and
You
our
never
son
told me you
safe.
thought that was weird.
Not weird, but because most people don't put a mask on in their own home just because they're sick.
Were you secretly thinking
had the
that I was
flu.
trying to get away from the kids and go and watch my shows?
No.
Are you sure?
No, because I know how much you are dedicated and love this family, and you literally did it because you didn't want me or Owen at the time, because Em wasn't around yet. You didn't want either of us to get sick and go through what you were going through. And so I find it incredibly fascinating and just amazing that you did that. And again, at the time, I thought it was like, oh, it's a little bit of overkill. Like, oh my gosh. And now that is our normal. That is like, you have to do that. Like, if you get sick, you have to quarantine and you have to wear a mask. And
I was quarantining before it was cool.
Yes.
Actually,
You
it's
like
never been
started
cool.
this trend.
Don't say that. Sounds like I started it.
No, you didn't start it, but you were like ahead of the masking and quarantining trend.
Yeah. I'd wear it at work. And then people would be like,
Yeah.
you're a weirdo. Are you, like, sick? I go, no, I'm trying to not get sick from someone else that is sick.
Or get someone else sick because you had an illness type of thing.
Yeah, I might have some neuroses that need help, but
But hey,
it works
paid
now.
off. Paid off.
It works now.
Oh goodness, where are we?
We are on a good thing.
Okay, why don't you do a good thing?
I just did a bad thing. How many good things you got left?
I got one left.
Oh, I guess I should go then.
Yeah, so you should go.
All right.
Because we overlapped a little bit.
We overlapped a little bit, and a couple of my good things we kind of have talked about a little bit too, but I wrote them down, so we're going to go over them.
All right.
So one of the good things was furlough. Now, if you were paying attention to...
Dave.
I know I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here. What?
I was gonna say, this was on your not so great things list.
No, I know.
Explain yourself.
I will.
Okay.
So furlough was not great. As I mentioned before, and if you were listening to the last podcast, episode that is, you would know that. Or if you know what furlough means, you would know it just kind of stinks. I got lucky with furlough. Furlough, for me at least, didn't actually impact us that bad. So the business that I work for happened to get approved for the PPP loan. So they, instead of, doing whatever with the money, they used it the way it was supposed to to the max amount. I think they even chipped in some of their own money. So that there was something, every company has flaws, but genuinely they were trying to look out for their employees, and everybody that they furloughed had the option of coming back. Now, not everybody did. And that was on their own accord. But everyone who went on furlough, they all had the option of coming back. So that was really cool. But because they added the extra money in, because of the PPP loan and them just trying to make sure that all the employees were taken care of, my income actually did not get hit that badly. So we were actually able to take the time off. In fact, I shouldn't say that. It really didn't get impacted at all. The only thing that impacted my income last year was the paid family leave, which is, I believe, 40-something%.
I'm not sure. It changed.
It changed in 2021.
It changed in...
and I think you get 12 weeks now.
I don't remember exactly what it is, but I know we did research into it, and I'm not 100% sure what the percentage is.
If you're going to have a baby, move to New York. That's the lesson
yeah,
there.
That is the lesson there.
We got a lot of good stuff here. A lot of not so great stuff, but that does pay off.
That is a huge benefit, yes.
So I mean, it was great having that time off. Again, the only thing that really stunk about that was the uncertainty of whether we were going to come back to work or not for the company. Like I said, everyone got their job back who wanted their job back, but it wasn't promised to us because they just didn't know how it was going to happen. But they did their best to make sure that we were all taken care of. So that was a really cool thing, and it kept us afloat and really didn't have the financial impact. Again, we had the financial impact of whatever happened with COVID, but also the fact that I took 10 weeks off to spend with the kids, and that was quite a bit less money then. So that actually ended up on both sides of my list for good reason.
And you and Owen got a ton of quality time together while you were on furlough because you really became a stay-at-home dad. And
Yeah, I never thought about that.
yeah, you guys spent so much time together, and I mean, you were already his favorite before that, but you guys would make forts together.
Oh, the forts were
You
awesome.
made like obstacle courses for him. You guys would take naps together, and it was the most like adorable thing to like walk into the family room.
That was great.
And you would make Dave made like a nap pod. We call it a nap pod. Basically just a whole bunch of blankets and pillows, and they would nap together, and it was the most adorable thing. And you guys just spent really good quality time. I think you could have spent your time worrying about, when are we going to go back to work? Or, oh my gosh, I'm stuck inside. Or, I don't want to be a stay-at-home dad. That's not for me. But you really just embraced it and owned it. And it was, I know it was hard because, taking on cooking every meal. I don't think I cooked any meals when you were on furlough. You cooked breakfast, lunch, and dinner and brought me snacks and made sure I drank enough water and took my prenatals. Like, you were just on top of everything. And I know that was really hard for you to have a pregnant wife who was not enjoying being pregnant, a son who was rambunctious and learning how to run and speak and, wanting to get into things more and not being able to just go anywhere and do anything he wanted. That was definitely hard, but you really just embraced it. And that's what I love about you is you didn't see it as a, oh my gosh, I have to spend more time with my family. This is going to be so annoying. You were like, I'm going to be, while I have this opportunity, I'm going to be the best stay-at-home dad I can be.
Yeah, I work with a lot of people, and there's a lot of people in my business who end up getting divorced, and due to hours, due to multiple things, but it's a fairly common thing, and I resigned to never be one of those people, but I loved being home with Owen and spending time with the family, and there's a couple things in my life that I truly am thankful for. Being adopted, so I am Korean, South Korea, and I was adopted at a very young age, and I think that my life is well, it is what it is because of that, but is significantly better than it would have been had I not been adopted. Meeting you, having you be my wife, which again is going to be another podcast at some point, and tune into that because that'll be very interesting. But also being a dad. I never really thought being a parent was going to be, and for a long time, I actually was not into it. I thought that I would move to Chicago and live in some building and have some office job, and on the weekends just party hard and take the L back to wherever the heck I live. But at some point, that changed, and I realized that having a family was what I really wanted, and having kids, and it ended up being so much better than I actually imagined it, having kids, and honestly, it's I think it's one of my best accomplishments. Far be it for how they're going to be turning out in say 20 years. We'll figure that out, but but yeah. So I love being a dad, and one of the things that we started doing when Owen got sick was building forts. I don't know where it came from, but we just started doing it. So yeah, I don't know. I loved every minute of doing that, and I think being a stay-at-home parent is extremely hard. I give credit to anyone who is a stay-at-home parent, and I think a lot of people do now that they have a feel of what it's like to be a stay-at-home parent. You do a lot. I know it.
Yeah.
You don't go to work, but you do.
But you're working all day.
But you're working,
yeah.
And I dare say that you do more work as a stay-at-home parent, depending on your kid's age, than you actually do at a real job.
Yeah, 100%. It is not easy.
It is not. So I have one more bad thing. What do you got left?
I think I have two more not so great and one really great. So
Okay.
Let me do one of my not so greats.
Okay.
And both of these are pretty quick. So one of them was just the differences in how people handle the pandemic.
That was one of mine.
Yeah. So everyone has different opinions as to what it meant for them to feel safe. And that was just a struggle because, you have friends, you have family. And I will say we were probably, and probably still are, on a very strict side of things.
Strict isn't the right word. We are cautious.
We're very cautious,
And
yes.
maybe some people might say we're overly cautious, but we are following the guidelines set in place by the CDC,
Yes.
set in place by like my brother who is a medical professional, other medical professional friends that we have. we're following those guidelines.
Yeah, and that feels right to us, is to, we're like,
because they know more than us.
Yeah, we're gonna rely on our, my brother-in-law, who is a medical professional. He knows what he's talking about, so we're gonna, follow his advice or the CDC guidelines, our pediatrician and our doctor's advice. So not to say that some people may see us as strict, but we're really just following medical advice and CDC guidelines. But, that's not to say that others feel more comfortable doing other things. And not saying that they're not following CDC guidelines, but maybe just opening up their, who they're hanging with and who they're meeting and is it 6 feet? Is it 3 feet? There's so many gray areas with all of this.
It's black, white, and gray.
Complicated things. Where we saw a lot of things as, it's black and white. It's, at 6 feet, you wear a mask, you don't go into other people's houses and all that, and things have changed and evolved as COVID has, and as, more people are getting vaccinated. But that has just been really difficult to navigate that. And, if someone is like, oh yeah, just come on in real quick. And I'm like, I don't really want to go in your house, but I don't want to offend you. Having those conversations like, oh, I'll just stay out here. It's just been a whole year of that. And that's just been hard.
Yeah, I think that people's patience has started to wear thin. And, one thing about me is I've got quite a bit of patience.
So much patience.
And I'm not just tooting my own horn here.
No, he has so much patience. It's one of the things I love about him. And I think one of the reasons why we can be together, because I have none and he has so much. And I jump the gun on things and I jump to conclusions, and he's like, hold on, let's take a step back, let's think this through. And when I get frustrated or the kids get frustrated, he just is like, he can sit back and be like, it's gonna be okay. He just has a lot of patience.
Yeah, so we saw it from all sides, and everyone's got their own version of what's right. And you know what, if it works, it works. Our version's very black and white, but we haven't had COVID. But we know plenty of people who are more on the gray scale of things, and they didn't get COVID.
Yeah.
So, who's to say who's right in this? I think whatever works for you works, but you know what? That's just kind of the way it is.
I like to think of it, or the way I've been telling myself to think of it, which has helped, is I think we did whatever felt right in the moment, and I'm not going to waste time looking back thinking, did we do the right thing? Because we can't change it. And I'm sure we would change things, or maybe we would do everything exactly the same, but I'd rather move forward rather than go, oh gosh, did we do the right thing in that specific situation? Did I, offend someone, or did I, do something that I wasn't comfortable with? It's already happened, and we just have to move on. And in each instance, do whatever we feel best about.
Yes. So I think that sums it up for all the bad. I've got one good left. You've got one good left?
I have one good. I do have one not so great, which was really just worrying over Owen's well-being. We had discussed previously in a podcast we pulled him out of daycare for a while. So just worrying about, is he going to, which I'm sure a lot of parents worried about, is he going to be set back socially because he doesn't, interact with as many kids? Or is he not going to be as smart because we don't really know what to teach him, and daycare, knows what to teach him, and are we teaching him the right things? And, just those types of things. It got really overwhelming at points during last year, thinking about, are we really doing what's best for him? What is best for him? Should he be saying more words? He doesn't really have friends per se because he's only seeing adults. Just worrying about that in general was not a not so great item for me.
Yeah, definitely me too. So, one good one then?
Yeah, I have one good one left.
What is your one good one?
So, right before everything hit the fan with COVID, literally the week before, we went on an epic family vacation to Disney World. So, it was my side of the family. So, our family, me, Dave, and Owen, and then my siblings and their kids and my parents. And I think there was, 14 to 16 of us all together.
Sounds right.
And we went to Disney World. And we knew going into it that COVID was a thing, but we just brought a ton of hand sanitizer, baby Ganex wipes, which
are fantastic.
Are awesome. We brought a bunch of those because those were baby safe, and we had a 13-month-old with us. And I've been to Disney many times in my life. I'm probably way into the double digits of visits.
And you usually come home sick, which I don't think you did this time.
I always come home like sick. The time we went before this, I came home with the flu. But this time we did not get sick. But it was so much fun. I had a birthday while we were there, and I
forgot about that.
Yeah, we went into it.
It was about a year ago. It was almost a year ago.
We were there a year ago. We were there from, I think it was like March 6th to March 10th. We were there. And then like a week later, everything was in lockdown.
They literally shut it down. What?
A week later.
A week later, yeah. Yeah, we made it out. Because your brother
he extended his trip, stayed an extra week, and he was there the day before Universal shut down.
That's right.
Yes. So it was so fun. Like I said, we went into it with a 13-month-old knowing we're not going to get on every ride. At the time he was taking 2 naps a day, so, we're going to have to take breaks. And we went into it knowing, we're not going to go from 7 a.m. to midnight. But, we're going to go into it and have as much fun as we can. And it was awesome.
It was great. We had no expectations. We knew we weren't going to get on everything. We didn't ride all the rides. We didn't hit Flight of Passage. We did Navi River, which is not that great. We did a couple other things. We saw Galaxy's Edge, the Star Wars area in Hollywood Studios. If you haven't seen that, it's amazing. But here's the thing: is bringing a 13-month-old, bringing a 13-month-old there. A lot of people say, "Well, they're not going to remember it. Oh, it's not going to be great. Oh, the parents are just doing it for themselves." That might be true, but he had a blast.
He had so much fun,
and despite all of it, the time frame changing, because we used to be those people who got there early, magic hours, got everything done, and then just get rallied all the way through to basically when the park closed every single day. So the family members would be in and out, but we'd just be like hitting all the rides, getting on everything we can do, riding some rides twice. And it was and it's kind of like that vacation where you're always doing something, where this was that kind of more leisure vacation. I don't want to say it's like a beach vacation, but because we're still running around trying to get the stuff and get to fast passes and things like that. Again, this is Disney the way it used to be.
Pre-COVID, yeah.
Pre-COVID. Disney the way it is now, if you went a year later, if we went right now, it's very different. And I don't even know if I'd want to go the way it is right now. They don't even have fast passes. You got to wait in line. But it was so much more fun than I would have thought of. Last time we stayed in the Polynesian, we stayed in the Grand Floridian. This time, which I really liked.
We loved. Cool. Yeah, we watched the fireworks from our hotel room.
A great view of the fireworks.
Yeah.
But we lucked out, honestly. That was all sheer luck. We almost didn't do it.
Yeah, unfortunately, my mom had an injury the couple of days before we went, and it was a family vacation. So we were like, well, if she can't go, do the rest of us pull out? Do we go at another time? And I remember saying, if we can't go now, we probably won't go for at least another 2 years, because I knew I was pregnant. I was almost 14 weeks pregnant at the time. And, we were like, we want to wait until the next baby is at least a year old, if not older. So it'll be a while before, and we don't want to go during certain months, so it'll be a while before we go. Thank goodness we went, because can you imagine if we canceled that trip right before everything shut down?
That would be one of our biggest regrets now.
Yeah, we would have been like, we should have gone and gotten
It would have been on the
bad
list, not the good list.
It would have been on the bad list, yeah, that we didn't go. But thank goodness we went, because luckily we didn't get sick. And like I said, we wiped everything
and nobody was wearing
down.
Masks. That's another thing.
No one was wearing masks.
This is COVID at the earliest stages. Like, I remember being there, and all you saw were a couple Asian Americans who were wearing masks. And I remember thinking, as an Asian American, that's silly.
Yeah, and here we are today, and I'm like, whenever I travel, I'm going to wear a mask.
Yeah. I'm
going to wear a mask all through flu season in the future.
Yeah, I mean, we got rid of the flu by wearing masks and apparently washing our hands.
Yeah, but we were just really diligent. Like, we wiped rides down before we got on. We, changing pads when we went into the restrooms, we wiped those down before we put our changing pad down and, just really tried to make sure, not tried, but made sure we were washing our hands and washing Owen's hands and washing tables down. But that didn't really, we wiped our hotel room down when we got there, but it didn't really impact our trip enormously because
I don't think we even really thought about it. At least when I was there,
we were more worried
that
we were going to cancel the trip because my mom had gotten injured, and that we were like, oh well, let's postpone it until she feels better, maybe even a couple weeks or a couple months. But thank goodness we didn't, because it was, and I think the whole family agrees, it was such a fun trip.
Yeah, nobody didn't have a good time.
Yeah, everyone had a good time, and we got away literally a week or two before the country and the state shut down completely. So
yes, and I understand we don't really have a leg to stand on to complain about anything like that at this point, but we did get very lucky on that.
We were really lucky. And it was, like I said, we went into it thinking like, we have a young kid. We're not going to expect to get on everything or stay the whole, open and close. But I will say, I think out of all the families, and my siblings have kids that are older than ours, they all went back to the hotel and took breaks during the day where we just let Owen nap in his stroller and would browse through the shops. We never went back to the hotel midday.
Yes, we got a stroller specifically for this trip.
Yes.
An Ergo Baby, I want to say.
Yeah, the Ergo Baby Metro stroller, which was, I think it's only 14 pounds. We put it in the overhead of the plane. It's a little pricey, but so worth it for us, I think.
Yeah, it's a great alternative to the umbrella stroller because it folds up in a Z form instead of the umbrella, and it's super light. It comes with its own backpack carrier thing.
Yeah, and like I said, it fits in the overhead. So
yeah. The airline lady tried to give us a hard time about that. And
she's
I just said,
you got to gate check this. And we were like, nah,
it'll fit. And then we just slid it in the backpack and she never knew.
Yeah.
But he slept in that and it breathed well. I think I still think we brought his fans, I want to say.
I think we did, and one of them broke. So Owen, it gets very hot in the heat.
He's a winter baby.
Yes, he takes after me with the heat. So he sweats a lot and gets very ornery when it's too hot. So we've always had fans on his stroller, and one of them broke. We brought two, but then we had one fan on him, so that way when it got too hot in Disney, we could cool him off with the fan.
And I think that's it. So that was our 2020. The goods, the bads, kind of everything in between. Tell us about your 2020. I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, I want to know what your guys' highs and lows were, if they matched up with ours or if you had different ones.
Yeah, so again, we are on Spotify, the Spillproof podcast, our YouTube, Spillproof podcast. You can find this up on both those pages. We also have Twitter and Instagram, Spillproof Podcast. And then if you want to write to us, spillproofpodcast@gmail.com. That'll get us anything you might write to us. We'll always write back. So yeah, that wraps up our 2020. We'll call this a two-part special since this ended up being 2 parts. So long we had to make 2 episodes out of it. We simultaneously made a second podcast while making the 3rd episode at the exact same time. So
there you go.
2 in 1. So thank you for tuning in. Check out next week, and I'm sure we'll be talking about something else then.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.